the pod.
Yeah, can you do the intro while I tie my shoes real quick? You have to do it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Just Jossin Around. I'm Cameron Logsdon here with Joslyne DeBonis, and we're just Jossin. Today we're talking to Joslyne about whether comedians who are not coastal, particularly not in New York or LA, even more so in New York, should or should not leave their respective areas, whether that's the South, whether that's the Midwest, or specifically whether or not Joslyne should move to New York.
Here's my feelings. This is how I feel about when a comic tells me they're moving to New York and they're from the Midwest. And if me duplicated, if I didn't know myself, I was a different person, and I was like, I'm gonna go to New York, I'd be like, you're so dumb. You're so dumb.
Why?
Because there's just every reason to not do it. As far as I think it's expensive, the hustle, all this stuff. But here is me.
Okay.
I think I understand, and I hear everything and I see all of that, but also I know myself. I know how I just would do that though. I wouldn't really go to New York to F around. I would maybe I think I would be there for a year or two or something. I don't know. But
do you think that the thing that stands in the way of people is that they go to New York and fuck around? Or do you think that it's the challenges that you just laid out?
Okay. Here's what I think. All right. I think there is a huge financial obstacle to moving to New York. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people, when they get there, the financial obstacle hits them, and then there's a job that has to happen. Whatever job they end up getting, that job is cutting out of time that you're dedicating to comedy.
Right.
I have a cool job that is remote, that is stable, and I know that, yes, I would be cutting back on, there's not going out to eat and, throwing in all this stuff. I would be heavily cutting back on I did do some looking at apartments. I know I would be downsizing. Half of my stuff would probably stay in storage. It would be a major downsize, major scale back in budgeting. But to me, that is living like that and giving all of my energy into pursuing, I would have that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that everyone has those circumstances.
Yeah.
But I look at everything in front of me and I go, I don't know. I take it back to how I've seen myself react in different situations in my life. I just think that I would really hustle. And I'm not saying,
I don't think you wouldn't hustle. I mean, you're working hard here. And I think that's great. I think that's what it takes to do anything. And
I know I probably sound dumb and arrogant.
I don't think you sound dumb or arrogant.
I'm trying to sound reasonable.
I don't think so at all. You sound optimistic.
Yes.
You sound like you have goals.
Yeah.
That's great. That is reasonable.
And also it's that, but also not wanting to live with questions with myself of what if and all that stuff. There is really no goal. I don't know what I want out of anything. I would love to be able to eventually I think to me a successful career in comedy is you're able to headline clubs and maybe every once in a while you get to open for someone cool at a theater. Or maybe you're the person at the theater. But I think that to me is cool. I don't know anything beyond that. But I'm I feel writing wise, I would sharpen up.
Yeah.
Because this is no shade to Omaha is great. But when I go and visit, I just was in Minneapolis.
Yeah. And
just spending the weekend around them, I'm just I'm fixing my jokes. Because I'm performing with people who are better.
That's not an unreasonable thing to say. Yeah. And it's true. And the greatest place in the world to do stand-up comedy is New York City.
Yeah.
There's no argument about that. The greatest comedians of all time have come from New York. And everybody that is in any city other than New York and LA says you have two options. This is an age-old adage in comedy. You go to LA to get famous, you go to New York to be a good comedian. And I think that's true. Yeah. And I think that you can do both. But the pressure and the opportunity in New York are about making good comics. That's all that it is. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's about working hard.
Yeah.
Steel sharpens steel. Being around the best people in the world that are working hard, that are going to outwork you, and you have to work just as hard and harder and be just as good and better if you want to keep your head above water.
Yeah.
I think it's why New York spits a lot of comics out.
Yeah.
So there's risk and reward. There's risk and reward. There's a lot, I think, to unpack about whether or not people should or shouldn't move. Especially anybody in the Midwest or anybody outside of the coasts where they should go. But I heard this thing once. It was some study they did, and it was about the idea of whether or not people. They were studying people who were thinking about leaving their jobs and moving to another job. And the study said that they were evaluating people's happiness, when they had a decision to leave their job or to stay in their job. And they were evaluating people's happiness. And so they studied people that left and they studied people that stayed. And even if people left the job for a better promising job or whatever it is, and then left the job that they left for, meaning they moved on and it didn't work out, those people were still happier than the people who stayed in their job and never left. And part of it is the exact thing you just said, which is, what questions are you leaving on the table? And so I think if anybody ever has the itch to try something new or to go somewhere different, you got to do it. If you can do it, because not everybody can. That's the other thing. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk about all these rich kids that live in New York on their Midwest rich parents'
and I don't
money.
come from that.
Nope.
Well, okay, my parents are rich, but I see none of that. I go, my parents are rich. I see none of that.
But I'm saying, like, I do think that just the sheer idea that it's on the table, I think anybody that has dreams and aspiration and promise, such as yourself, you should probably do it. That's like probably the takeaway, because I think that if you don't, it'll sit on your heart. But there are a lot of considerations about whether or not it's a good idea for comedians in general. And as comics, I think the more important question is timing. And the more important question is, when is the right time to move? And I think there's a lot more wiggle room there. Because you're either going to move or you're going to atrophy, right? You'll stay here and you'll find something more comfortable and you'll give up on comedy. That's just the way it goes. I watch it happen all the time. I've seen it happen the whole time I've been doing it, and all the people before me say the same thing. People just get comfortable and they give up, or they burn out because there's only so high you can go, or they just sit around and feel like the what ifs haunt them for the rest of their careers. So it's very tough. It's a tough call. It's
a lot. It's very heavy to me. Like, I think it's a heavy topic for me. I don't know, because it does quickly punch me into existential. Like, I start thinking like that. I just am. I don't know how I want to. I don't know. I'm in no rush. It's something that I truly want to, like, sit with for a while, because I'm someone who I know that, like, my feelings flip, my feelings, like, my everything changes, and I do want to sit with it. I'm in no rush. I just signed lease on an apartment downtown, and I've wanted that apartment since I was in college, and I'm like, this is like a little bit of a dream come true for me, and I'm living in that, and I'm very happy. Also, I love my job. Like, I'm in no rush. It's not nothing. I don't want to escape the reality I'm in right now. This is, like, amazing. But I know that I need to look ahead and, like, where do I want to be 5 years from now? And what do I want to be doing 5 years from now? And so for me, it's just like, okay, setting goals. What could I do to achieve that goal? And for me, it just, and I thought maybe I could, like, maybe like Chicago or like Minneapolis or Denver, but I've been to those places and I'm just not. And I need to go to New York and,
Have
like,
you been to New York to do comedy yet?
Not to do comedy, no. I haven't done comedy with that. I know.
That's all right.
And I know because now it's like I haven't felt it. I don't know what it's like. I don't have the first experience. I understand that.
Fair.
And I will, I'm planning out a run this summer to go to, like, through, like, Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and I would, like, obviously I'm out there. I'm going to make a trip out to New York, but I understand I don't have all the information. And I need to gather that. So yeah, I'm just in like a corporate, like, they're like, we're in the discovery.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in the discovery of it, but I'm leaning hard because I feel like where I'm at now is my goal right now, like, for the rest of this year, probably a lot of next year too, is just like, I would love to go to like 2 different cities a month.
Yeah.
2 different cities a month, meet like, you know, a handful of comics from those cities and just like travel. I have the flexibility. I have the resources. I just want to go shake hands and meet people.
I think shaking hands and meeting people is one of the best things you could do, especially early in comedy. That's like just growing your network.
Yeah.
And I think one mistake comics make a lot is they try to network up instead of networking across. You know, you're going to meet people at festivals or on shows, the bar shows all across the country that you might do. And, you know, the pool of people that you began with or that are like are in your class of comics, it shrinks. But some people all come up together and you come up together as a class. And I think the more you network across, the more you have those like lifelong relationships. But the people that try to network up, you know, they're trying to outgrow themselves too quickly. And, you know, like think about you. You have friends that you start comedy, even just on a local level, you have friends you start comedy with. You would rather put your friends on a show than, you know, not that people don't reach back, but it makes more sense for you to be like, hey, we came up together and you haven't had the same opportunities that I have, but I'm running the show now, so I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to put you on the show. You're not always going to be like, who's down there that I can pull up? You want to help your friends get to where you are first.
Yes. Yeah.
And so as you network across, that becomes true for everybody in your class and on your level because they know that you've been working just as hard as them and just as long as them, and they thought you were funny when they met you, and they want to bring you up together. So I think that's an interesting
That's real.
part of it.
I feel that. Like, I'm putting it in Minneapolis terms because it's just very fresh in my mind. But, like, I feel like someone who is, I mean, definitely swinging, like, has been doing this for a lot longer than me, but, like, Ben Katzner, Mike Lester, they were, like, my original contact for, like, hey, like, intro to the scene.
Yeah.
But, like, this last trip I went out there, I hung out with people who we're at the same, like, years we've been doing it, we're doing.
Same level, yeah.
Like, you know, Tito, and he's coming, him and, like, a bunch of other people are coming out here this weekend to do shows out here. But, like, I definitely am, like, I appreciate and am grateful for, like, having friendships with people that are doing more, like, you know, are above. But also, I do feel like it is easier to maintain and have connections with people who are where I'm at because there's just, like, an understanding. Yeah. And, like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm, I don't know.
I think that's true. You know, I don't know. There's so much stuff to like unpack when it comes to this question and about like thinking about where we are in comedy, and that's a lot of the reason why I asked you to be on the pod today.
Yeah.
And so
I'm glad though. I kind of needed this because I added you to my close friends, but I know I can't imagine what opening your Instagram page is like. I imagine the notifications go insane. And just everything. But I had a close friends of like 100 people, some friends, some comics that I work with, some comics that I love, like really people that I'm like, I would genuinely want their feedback on. Yeah. And I put like a question box and was like, what are your thoughts and feelings on this? And
what'd you get back?
People were trying to be funny. And it's like, yes, I get it. Like, haha, you're gonna go live with the rats. And I'm like, yes, I hear this. Yeah. That's pretty valid. Yeah. But also I'm like, no, I want someone who like genuinely like hear me out because I constantly hear I don't know, I just feel like such a hypocrite because truly when a comic from here or like there's been comics from Kansas City that recently have moved to New York and I'm like, no. Like I'm like, it's not.
What makes you say no and what makes them different from you?
I say no. And I'm saying no. And here's the thing. The judgment that I put on themselves is judgment that I'm also casting on myself. And the question that you just asked me is the question I'm asking myself is why. And that is, it's probably like, honestly, internalized. Like there is narcissism or something. Yeah. A clear bias. Okay. But, and also the people that I'm judging are just white men that are very milquetoast and have no. Okay. But anyways.
She's talking about you, Dr. Seuss. All right, bleep that out, and then they won't know that you're talking about Colton. Keep going.
No, Colton moved to New York.
I don't know. I think he's in Chicago, and I think he went for grad school or girl and comedy. Maybe both. I think that's why people move.
That's why. Okay, yeah.
That's why these dudes move. How about that? That's why these dudes move.
I think it's dumb because it's like it truly. When I look at the people who have recently moved that I know in the last month, I'm like, what perspective are you bringing to New York that is not already there, that's not already on stage? And The thing is the question that I just asked is a question that I need to sit with, and I need to fucking journal it out and figure out, like...
That's a good question.
Like,
maybe not even just for the New York. That might be a good question for comedy.
Just comedy, yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, what are any of us bringing? You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's a self-exploration that people may or may not grab onto as a way to see the human experience or their own experience. There's something about watching somebody try and fail that, like, teaches the world something. You know, it's why we could watch, a Pixar movie about somebody like, I don't know, Pixar movies are always really simple stories. It's like, squirrel trying to put bread in a toaster.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple thing, but we just are interested in watching people try and fail. Maybe that's what being an artist is about. Mm-hmm. But you could do that, So that's a big question too. I suppose. What do you think you bring?
That's where, honestly, this last weekend I was really introspective with myself, because it's like, okay, when I'm on stage, it's like, what am I looking like? Yes, I'm obviously like the laughs and I want the jokes to hit and all this stuff, but it's like I'm physically looking at faces of people and I'm like, who in the crowd do I want to like my stuff, like what I'm saying right now? And like,
that's a good question.
And like, I'm also paying attention to who's coming up to me after shows, who's following me on social media after a show. And a lot of it, it's like women that are like in their like, mid-20s to late 30s, like I'm hitting right there. And like when I meet these, like I ran into this lady last night at a Leavers who had seen me. She's come to see me at Tiny House a couple times, and just talking with her, I just like, we connected. And like I don't know, the people that like me, I'm like, oh, even if we're not the same, like even they're not gay or they're not whatever, I'm like, there's like a common, we get it.
Yeah.
Like like I connect with you, and I'm like, would love to build this. Like I would love to look out into an audience and just be, they're not going to always look like me. They're not going to, we're not going to whatever, but I'm like, we'd get along.
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
I get it. I do think it's, when you start comedy, I think people have an idea, like their first audience, their first perception of their audience should be themselves. Or at the very least, what happens is it's usually a reflection of what they think they are, because people go on stage and they start doing what they like. People always come out and they're like emulating another comedian. Oh, I just saw Chappelle do this thing, or oh, I just saw whoever do this thing. And they kind of come out and they're doing almost like a half parody of that thing, which is usually just a reflection of themselves as a comedy audience.
Yeah.
But then, you sit with it a little bit longer like you have, and I think you start to think about, okay, well, who do I want to talk to? And some people broaden that scope. Some people really narrow that scope. It's difficult, but I think good comedians do what you're doing right now, which is consider it, right? Just to even put thought into it. Comedy, I think comedians forget sometimes how much it's supposed to be about the audience. They think so much about themselves, and they think so much about other comedians.
True.
And I do think that there's like a part of it that is like, people might just want to watch an artist try and fail. So to that end, you may benefit from just being yourself. For years now, we've watched Bill Burr tumble through his own existence and kind of figure himself out as a comedian. And I think in a lot of ways we're like, yeah, all right, I'm watching this like angry dude kind of struggle with all his own contradictions and figure it out. That's interesting. On the flip side, you have other comedians who are like, no, I'm here to like both entertain and share my view of the world from my vantage point, like a Sarah Silverman or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's two different approaches to it.
Yeah.
A good question to ask. But if we come back to the idea about moving to New York, you said you thought about Chicago and Minneapolis. Somebody once told me that growing yourself in comedy is like snails kind of upgrading their shells, right? And I think that middle ground is a question I hear a lot of comics question. Should I go straight to New York, or should I do an intermediary city? Like I think Omaha is like a third tier comedy city. I love Omaha. I'm not dogging it, but I'm just saying we're third tier.
Yeah.
Like we're not as comedy-less as some places in, let's say, North Dakota, right? But we're not Denver, we're not Chicago, we're not even Minneapolis, which is kind of a third, second tier, right? And we're certainly not one of the top two, New York or LA, right? But we are third tier. So the question is, do you jump all the way to New York, or do you do any intermediary city or second tier city? Chicago's off the table?
It's not. I was just texting a Chicago comic. I'll say his name because I love Evan Hole. I text Evan Hole.
Evan's great.
I text him probably once a week, just like with whatever question I have or like literally anything. He gives like very blunt feedback, and I love it.
Cool.
And he was very like, well, he was just honest about New York and was like, we'll do it, but also know that these people who, you know, he's like, I just know a lot of people getting eaten alive, like out there in New York, in the sense of comedy, obviously. But like, he was telling me like, you know, move to Chicago, you would have plenty of work here. And I know that to be, it's not off the table. I think what was off the table, I went to Chicago for the first time in January, and that city was very cold, and I maybe wasn't in a good headspace. I loved every show I did that weekend.
Yeah.
I did a Don't Tell, got up at Zany's, Lincoln Lodge. I did like spots, like dream spots that I wanted in one weekend. That was really fun. But then I was like, it was the city. I didn't like the city. You
didn't like the city. Okay. Well, what about Denver? You don't like Denver?
Denver is so overwhelming. Denver has like 4 comedy scenes. It is like
Chicago has several comedy scenes.
Yes, Chicago is like massive, and yes, Denver. I don't know with Denver. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I don't think Minneapolis is fun stand-up wise. I think I have a good time. But I also see the cons, and I would feel unhappy there.
Minneapolis is definitely better. I'm gonna say Omaha. Don't be mad.
Don't be mad.
Minneapolis is better than you. That's just okay. The way it is. That's okay. It's not your fault. The circumstances are different. Minneapolis is a better art city in general.
Yeah.
Minneapolis is better at the arts. You can thank Prince for that. But I do think that Omaha to Minneapolis is, while it's a step up, it's a little lateral.
Yeah.
It's a little.
I feel that way with Kansas City.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I've thought about Kansas City. Well, I thought about Kansas City for like 2 seconds because I was like, I love it here. I love the people. You guys have you have a funny bone. You have the thing. It's the same, just a little bit bigger, but it's the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Chicago and Denver are very realistically.
Chicago and Denver are also what I have seen to be like maybe slightly less shock to the system for comedians that have left Omaha.
Yeah.
I've been doing comedy in Omaha long enough to have at least seen a lot of people go a lot of different places and try a lot of different things. And because of the nature of the Midwest and like family-wise and friend-wise, more people have friends in Chicago, Denver, family, Chicago, Denver, that it's easier for Omaha folks to go to one of those two places. They're crazy far away from us. It's still 7 hours in either direction. Yeah. But they are significantly closer and more similar to us. Both, they're not as expensive as New York, LA. They're not as overwhelming as New York. But I also feel like I've seen both things happen. Like people have gone to either place and it's been, they've crashed out, or they've gone to either place and, you know, outgrown it too quickly. And they're like, I should have just jumped straight to New York. And then there are other people who go and they're like, no, it wasn't for me. I got to come back. And they come back, or they get out of it. You know, it's really tough, but I think it's really more about like, I think while you're new in comedy, while you have fewer obligations, chase whatever your heart's telling you. I feel like you really want to go to New York, and maybe you're looking for people to validate your dreams, which is fair.
It's, yes.
Do you think that's true?
Kind of, but also the thing is I will listen to everyone around me, and I do want feedback, but I do know myself, and I do know that at the end of the day, I'm going to make the choice that I want to make.
Sure. But I always do.
Yeah. I'm going to make it.
That's the way humans are.
Like, I'm not going to make a choice that doesn't feel right, that is just because someone said it, or like, of course, honestly, but even validation, what's crazy is like, I have this whole like internal struggle right now where it's like figuring out what drives me to do stuff, just in general. Like, is it external validation? Because then I'll push myself, I'll do something, receive external validation, it's not fulfilling. Sure. And so right now I'm currently in a space where I'm trying to figure out what truly validates me. Is it internal? Like, what is pushing me?
That's a good question too. Sounds like you've been chewing over a lot, Joslyne. Again, it's why it's really nice that you were able to make time for us today and come in and chat with us, because I do think that these are the kinds of conversations that I promise you are not alone in having.
It feels very lonely, and it's like a very like, it's, I don't know. Because it is, at the end of the day, like, the only person who has the answer. Like, I can't, as much, I wish I could look at you and ask you all these questions, and then you're like, the answer is blah, 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 blah. But that is not how it works. And it's like just sitting with something and, like, really feeling, like, okay, I don't know. This is kind of off topic, but, like, still rounding it back to New York. My thing right now is I wouldn't trust myself to move to New York right now because I have no discipline.
Okay. That's a smart thing to know.
I have drive.
Smart thing to know.
I have drive. I have, like, the chutzpah to, like, I have that. I have no discipline. And so for me, if I want to move, I feel like I have to, like, parent myself, because I'm like, all right, if you want to move to New York, you need to instill discipline in yourself. That is, like, you know, I feel like I need to get on Adderall or something. I need to, like, I clearly have, like, ADHD or, like, some kind of, like, something. I mismanage my time a lot, or, like, I get distracted. I just need to, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of, like, at home discipline that needs to be instilled. If this is, I don't know if this is tracking.
It is tracking. Okay. I feel like, I don't know, this is an outside perspective, but I feel like you're managing and juggling a lot right now.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're also doing it in a way that, like, continues on a generally upward trajectory. I think the thing that comics run into a lot of times is they're always like, I gotta do the big swing. I'm gonna start posting 3 times a day. I'm gonna start a new podcast. I'm gonna do a show. I'm gonna do all this stuff. I'm gonna move to New York. They want to make these big swings, and it's this combination of, like, ambition and longing.
Yeah.
Right. And realistically, the way that you yield the best results, I feel like, is the same as anything else. It's like, ask yourself, what can you do consistently?
Yeah.
What can you keep doing over and over for the most sustainable amount of time? And I think that's where you find growth. But, you know, I also come from, I come at this from a very different place. You know, I started comedy, and I think that I probably, my experience would be very different, I think, if I wasn't grounded by the fact that I was raising my kid. You know what I mean? And, you know, I've always told people, if you don't have, like, real obligations, a family that you're supporting, whether that's, you know, some people it's a kid, some people it's like their parents, or some people it's their siblings or whatever, or you know, some people are married and you know, their spouse doesn't want to, whatever. There are a lot of reasons why I think people might be stuck and grounded. But if you have, like, let's say the flexibility to make those decisions for yourself, I always tell people to go. I always tell, hey, go.
Yeah.
Go, because I probably would have gone.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone, but that wouldn't have been a consistent lifestyle for me, and it wouldn't have been the best choice. I'm making decisions for people other than myself.
Yep.
And I think for you're making decisions for yourself. I think it's smart to say, what is a decision for myself that I can live with for the longest amount of time?
Yeah.
Do you feel like feel like you could? Evan says people are getting eaten alive in New York. You think you could go out there with the wolves? Are you ready for that?
Okay, there's a couple things I want to hit on. You said a lot. So there's a couple things I'll work backwards. Start with the wolves thing. I think that even if, and I will get destroyed and I get overwhelmed, I am someone, like, who, you know, I love my parents and I have a good relationship, but they, like, kicked me out when I was, like, you know, 18 and I didn't have, like, any money, and I figured it out. And I know I've seen myself multiple times get dropped into, like, bad circumstances, and, like, I just take a step forward, and everything kind of, I figure it out. I think New York, it would be the biggest challenge probably for me ever, but I really feel like I would grow as a person. And even if it was, like, an all failure, like, I think that would be good for me to fail at that extent.
To fail on a massive level?
To fail on a massive level. And I don't even know.
I don't actually think it'd be that massive.
I don't even know how to define what failing in New York would be like to me, because to me, success in New York is going there and doing stand-up consistently. That is, to me, and it's like whether you're getting, and I understand you have to pay for the open mic, you have to do all these things. Yes, but it's like writing, performing, meeting people consistently. That's success to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I
that's
fail,
also the life. I think that's the difference. The difference is that like when you're doing comedy anywhere other than New York, maybe Chicago, you can live this way. Maybe Denver to a lesser extent, but like the comedy life goes on pause a couple days a week.
Yeah.
Most places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, what did the Sydney, which hosts a very fun, very great open mic on Tuesday nights here in the city of Omaha.
I host once a month.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, I host it once a month.
Host it once a month.
Rotation.
But they canceled last night.
Yeah. And so there was no Tuesday mic.
So there was no
other Tuesday
option.
mic. I know.
So there's no other option.
Yeah.
That's not the case in New York.
Exactly.
There's always options. So you can keep, the life doesn't pause. But at the same time, the pauses can be good. And there are a lot of benefits to being here. I mean, think about it. You have your own podcast. I know. You have a podcast. You helped other comedians get their own podcasts. You run shows. You host the mic. You're working consistently. When a big headliner comes to town, you are just as much as available as any of the rest of us to get a call to say, hey, would you like to open for this person? You're on that same list. And then when you travel to other places, now you've networked and you've made friends and you can do these things. And when you go in, guess what? You can hop up at Zany's and you can hop up at Lincoln Lodge and you can do this spot here and you could do the Don't Tell there. But there are comedians that started in Chicago who are listening to you right now saying, how'd she get that? How'd she do that? And it's because you came in as an outsider. A piece of advice I got early on in comedy was they said, it's hard to be in New York, but you'll get more benefit going, being the big fish from another place and coming in and visiting. Sometimes there's a lot of benefit in that. I think that could be true too. But I also think that you go back to the snail thing, and at a certain point, the shell gets too small. It will get too small. And you're pushing the limits. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much that you can do here before you've done it all. And already you're pushing the limits. So it is a good time to reflect on that. It is a good time to decide what's next.
Yeah.
But, is the big leap the right one? There's a lot of factors outside of comedy that matter.
It's just, this is where I just am at, because I talked about this. I did like a solo episode like maybe 2 episodes ago, and I was talking about how like everything that I have right now was what I have been working for. And it sounds very small and like whatever, but like generally it's what I've been working for like for a while. Like to have a job that is flexible and like I can mess with my schedule how I need to. The apartment that I'm living in, it's the one that I want. It's like all these things that like they're to other people small potatoes, like small goals, but to me that was like that's just like what my focus was. And so now that it's here and I have it, I am just like, there's nothing else that I want in Omaha. And honestly, there is okay. The things that I say that I want, I have trouble saying them because I don't think that I am capable. Like there's like that deep-seated like I don't know.
You're afraid to say them out loud?
Like it's like it is what I want, but then when I say it out loud, I'm like I feel like I sound insane or I sound silly because I don't. There is a point of disbelief in myself of like, okay, I can say that, but like, am I capable? Can I actually do that?
Okay.
I don't know. I have a lot of, there's a lot going on.
But listen, I'm telling you, that's why it's so good that we were lucky to land Joslyne DeBonis today here on the Just Jossin Around podcast, because you're talking about something that all comedians, whether they're in Omaha or any place other than New York, are asking themselves. And I would also venture a guess that the comedians in New York are asking themselves, what am I doing here? And would I have been better off going to a smaller city, something like that? A comedian from Omaha that went to New York, 2 comedians. They're siblings, right?
Oh.
Do you know them? Jack and Georgia Comstock?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Both
yeah.
great comics.
Yeah.
Both great comics.
Yeah.
Both were in Omaha. When I started, they were a few years ahead of me. And they had kind of outgrown Omaha. They were both running shows here. They were both opening at the Funny Bone. They had done everything there kind of was to do in Omaha. And they both asked themselves, hey, where do I want to go next for comedy? Georgia went to Denver. Jack went to New York. And I think at the time, everybody, I don't know if they know this, but I think at the time everybody went, damn, like Jack went to New York, you know, like, oh, Georgia went to Denver. But we knew comics that went to Denver. We didn't have a lot of people ahead of us. At least my class didn't see a lot of people make the move to New York. But we were like, damn, like Jack went to New York. But then every time Jack came back, he's like, man, it's rough out there.
Yeah.
And and he was like, it's, everybody's just getting clips. There's just phones in every show, and he's like, really go there. Okay. Well, Georgia went to Denver. There was a little bit more space for her. She had a little bit more opportunity to water herself. She got married while she was out there. She's married to another great comedian, Nick Dean. You know Nick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm piecing all this together.
Yeah. Okay. So she goes out there and she lived a full life, continued to grow as a comedian, and felt really, really. I think when I talked to her, she at least said that she felt really good about having been to Denver. And Jack is now in Denver as well. And I think he's thriving. I think he's maybe thriving more than he has. It's not to say that he couldn't make it in New York. It's just to say that maybe it wasn't the right fit for him. And people, you kind of try it out. It's, it's really I think it's like a Goldilocks situation. You just try all the different porridges and see which one works for you best.
But I have made the wrong decisions before, and they do work themselves out. And actually, I can look back and see a lot of purpose in those decisions.
That's the answer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've made decisions that didn't work out, but then they did. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be true no matter what.
Which had the thing that I look back looking at the time I was like, this is the worst thing I've done, which was drop out of college, and then I moved to Lincoln. But had I not done that, things I wouldn't heard at wouldn't be a thing. It still would be a thing. I just wouldn't be a part of it.
There's no heard at without Joslyne DeBonis.
In my realm,
you hear that, Pat, brother? Okay.
Oh, Pat would give me so much shit for saying that. That's so
Grace
funny.
had nothing to do with it.
I still somehow I still feel like somehow I would find a way to know Grace.
I think we all do kind of hope that we can find Grace in our lives.
Grace is this is just my Grace moment right now. Grace, I don't know, she was my mentor, and she taught me everything that I know. And for me to be able to have a full-time job here, it is because of Grace. And so every time I see it, I'm just so filled with gratitude. She's amazing. She's so smart. Really quick, I want to double back to, because you said this earlier, talking about you having obligations outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And making those. I feel like another thing that I need to table is the bigger question of what do I want from life, and do I want relationships, do I want a family, do I want all this stuff, and the answer is no.
The answer is no. You don't want a life.
Well, no, because I was that's always something where I'm okay, am I suffocating other aspects of my life because I want to pursue comedy, and then I will give those other things, and that I just don't feel like a natural relationships, specifically if they happen to me, that's awesome, that's cool, I experienced that, but it's not something I'm actively seeking. I don't do dating apps or anything like that. Just find me. Listen.
There you go. I recently heard her email is in her bio. Okay.
That is the only point of contact. And I found out my shit is going to spam. I found emails of people reaching out to book from March, and they were all in my spam.
Hey, side tip, if you have enemies, get their email, add it to spam lists.
Awful. You're awful.
I know it's diabolical.
That's how I ended up blocked.
I know it's diabolical. No, I told you, I don't know why you got
I don't know why
blocked.
I'm blocked.
I don't know why you got blocked.
That was super hurtful to me.
I don't think you are blocked, but I certainly didn't get a calendar invite.
Sometimes it doesn't go through, and so that could have been it. Especially if it's an external, email. That's what we call a Gmail, the external email.
Sure.
They don't. You don't get it.
Pat, how come I don't have an email here?
Pat,
how come?
this is the age old question.
I'll talk to Grace, and we'll
Everyone
get that sorted
says
out
that.
because I can't have my guests coming on.
Nope.
And having these kinds of problems. I'm sending calendar invites; they're not going out. I don't think you're suffocating your life. I think the problem is that people have a tendency to think that life has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Especially anybody that's and I know you're kind of from all over because you're a military kid, but like. I think in the Midwest in particular, we have this idea of what the other parts of our life are supposed to look like, and it's all a farce, you know. And I think that don't worry about that. However you're living, your life fits into it. Your family is your family. Your friends are your friends. Your relationships are the relationships, and they can take any form or shape. And whatever you're doing, those things are going to exist. So I don't think that people should necessarily weigh those things as options. And the people that do, I feel like are usually the ones that wanted the traditional thing to begin. You know what I mean? That's just what they were wanting. And they probably wanted it more than comedy, and they don't feel like the other stuff is going to fulfill them as much. So they look for it. But I don't think I think you got to chase what feels good.
Yeah.
And make space for the things that you actually want.
Yeah.
You know? And
I agree. I think the traditional, like, family, kids, all that stuff is like what I've seen, what has been like, and then like I do have like sides of my family where that's like the thing. That's like what everyone's having kids and everyone's doing that. Yeah. Like my best friend, Taylor, she's pregnant. She's going to be having a baby. And it's like, I see it around me, and I know that I've never grown up like, there's like, you know, the girls who dream about I've never dreamed about my wedding day. I could give two shits about a wedding dress. I don't care. Like, they'll never be like, I'm never going to be like in front of like everyone I know in a dress and like
what you want to do is open at a theater.
Like that, to me, that is my wedding day.
Yeah, these are comic. This is what a comic wants. I'm telling you. This is, but that's good to know too, because you're at least asking. You know that you're trying to go. What you're trying to get the question. You know, New York or wherever. It's interesting, and I'm glad you put the poll up. And what I want to say to the listeners is, if you have thoughts on this, feel free to email us.
Weigh in at joslyndeBoniscomedy@gmail.com.
There you go. Or feel free to comment on the pod.
You can comment on Spotify.
Yeah, you can comment on Spotify.
God. And please leave like a 5-star review, because someone, I don't know who it is, someone is tanking my reviews right now. I'm sitting at a 4.3, and I haven't logged into my spot, so I can't see what the reviews are, but I'm fiercely upset. And I know whoever's doing it is doing it out of spite. It's upsetting to me, and it's wrong against you. And you have karma coming your way, and I can't even tell you what that entails.
There's no way to live. Don't live that way. Focus on your own stuff. Start your own podcast.
Start your own podcast. And you know, I will rate it 5 stars because I know what it takes to run a fucking business. Sorry, that was my Kim Kardashian quote.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? If you knew what it takes to run a fucking business. It's when she's talking to her sister.
Is this the same one where she hits her Merce and hits her with a purse and says, "I'm fucking Mickey"? Or is that the one? Or maybe I'm thinking of a mashup of memes.
I think you're thinking of a mashup of a lot of things.
People are dying. Kim, is it
that's one.
I love that one.
But there's one scene where Kim and her sister Courtney are getting in a fight, and Kim has got a lot on her plate. She's booking me. She's doing all this stuff.
Sure.
Courtney thinks the world revolves around her, so she's trying to get something rescheduled because something that doesn't matter. She's just not thinking about Kim.
Yeah.
And Kim finally snaps, and she's like, "If you knew what it took to run a fucking business." I don't remember the rest of the quote, but she's just like, "You wouldn't act like this." Yeah.
What more do you need? That's it.
You wouldn't be acting like this. And it
says it all.
Resonates. I'm just kidding.
I feel that. Look,
yeah.
I could get behind that. You know, I don't know. I think the other thing we haven't necessarily talked about is, what is the point of going to New York? What do you get out of it in today's modern comedy landscape? Because we've been talking about comedy for the sake of like how it feels for the soul, which I think is the more important conversation to have.
Yes.
But I think a lot of times what comics are asking themselves, or what comics tell themselves, is, I can't make it if I don't go to New York. That's a thing I think I hear a lot of people from not the coast say, a lot of comics say. And so to the people that are out there right now saying, I don't think I can make it unless I go to New York, do you empathize with that? Does that drive you in any way? Do you feel like you're limiting your future potential
by
not being in New York right now? Do you think you have to go to New York to make it as a comedian in the 20s?
No, but also I feel like making it is defined so differently between like to me
it is. That's
like
fair.
To me, I will feel okay, and that's again, it's a thing that I like. If I went to New York, and I would want the thing I would be working towards, like the physical, tangible goal. I would love to be like a regular getting up at the Cellar. The physical, tangible, like
the greatest place to do stand-up comedy.
And I know
in the world.
that's insane. I know.
I don't think that's insane at all. I've seen some of the comics at the Cellar. 99.9% of them are great, but every once in a while you see somebody up there. I'm like, I know I've seen you bomb. You know what I mean? But that's okay. I mean, I would go to the Cellar and bomb right now. So I'm not talking shit, but I'm just saying, I think it's a very attainable goal. I say it because I do think it's an attainable goal. 100% attainable goal.
It's a physical, like, I keep calling it a physical, tangible goal, but it's like, it's just something, because to say, oh, I'm just going to go out there and do stand-up is a very, like, loose, like, not well-defined goal. And so I have to really hone it in on something specific. And if I am very honest with myself, the very specific thing is like, I would love to be like a trusted comic that like whoever's coming in, like I can host or start, you know, like to be, but the thing is, and I say that, and I'm not saying this in like a negative way at all, but like, I'm not even that for Omaha yet. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't
disagree. I disagree.
For like the Funny Bone here and stuff. And I'm not saying that out of like, I'm whatever. I'm just saying like realistically, if I look at my positioning now. So I think I have trouble believing that could be a possibility or something that I do because I am not attaining it here. So I still have things in areas to grow. I don't know.
Growth is growth. You know what I mean? I think as long as you're doing what you're doing, you're gonna grow wherever you are. Yeah. You know, I think the difference between anywhere in the Midwest and New York is the lows are just as low, but the ceiling is a lot higher. Mm-hmm. That's the way I've always looked at it. Mm-hmm. Like the people that are bombing in open mics in New York are not bombing harder than the people that are bombing here. They're not bombing harder than the people that are bombing in Austin, in Denver, in LA. People bomb, they bomb. If cream rises, shit sinks. And that's just the way that's always going to be. But the ceiling is significantly higher in terms of like who might pop in, who you could be around, what you can learn. The difference is that if you go to New York and you consider it a training ground where you're trying to improve yourself, you're just going to be around the greatest comedic athletes in the world. You're around the people that are in peak condition, the people that
makes me excited.
I think it's extremely exciting.
It makes me
you can't be mad at that.
Excited to even like, I don't know, even if it was the bare minimum, I'm just showing up and I'm just like, getting up and just being around meeting people, like that's still, that excites me. Also, there is this thing in me that like wants to get into writing and like do writing, and that's a place that
like script writing.
And even though I am very like stand up as the focus, and like I'm kind of like trying to diversify what I want to do outside of that, still is New York to me. But I don't know. I feel like I understand the Delulu though. That's why I'm like
I think that's something you have to get out of your head, is that I don't believe that it's delusional. I don't think there's any delusion in thinking what's delusional about it.
I don't know. I think it just takes here's how I feel. I think you have to have a lot of self-belief to go put yourself in that situation. And so for me, it's like I'm having delusion in the amount of self-belief that I have that I could go out there.
I think you have too much information. Like you know too much about comedy and you know too much about what's out there. I think it's more delusional to get on stage the first time than it is to move somewhere and do something you've done before.
Okay.
It's more delusional to try something new than it is to try something old somewhere new.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't think there's a delusion in it. I think it's what's practical, what's feasible, what's going to be best for your mental health, what's going to be capable for your wallet? And if you go to New York, will you be able to afford mentally and literally the time to do the thing that you want to do? Or could you stay here and do just as much comedy while living comfortably? I think the difference between, for me personally, I feel like what it takes to get better from in Omaha is to hold yourself to a standard higher than Omaha. That's what I feel like is true. You can't compare yourself to just your own surroundings if your surroundings aren't going to challenge you, and you're pushing the limits on what challenges you here already, you know? So the question is, are you going to go somewhere else that challenges you, or can you stay grounded here and challenge yourself? It is harder to be your own defense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
That's difficult.
Yeah.
That's difficult. That's where I think people burn out. That's where I think people get complacent. That's where I think people give up. But I don't always necessarily know that sometimes it is too much. Sometimes it is too much to go all the way to New York and be like, let me take on the onslaught. And you go, I wasn't ready. That isn't bad. Look at Tyler Walsh. Tyler Walsh started in Iowa. He went to Chicago, wasn't ready for Chicago. Left Chicago, ended up in Omaha, has grown, and could really go anywhere he wants now.
Truly,
like he has options in terms of like where he could go. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school to say that I've had conversations too with Tyler about, you know, what is the right thing for either of us to do, you know? And he talks about it a lot of time. Like, he goes, I don't know. New York. You know, like he doesn't always know. And so I think he asks the same questions. And I know that he's further along in comedy, and he certainly too has pushed the limits on what is here for him. But again, I think it's a very normal and a very natural thing to ask, but just by the nature of asking it, you're at least trying. The question is like, can you, you know, what are you going to actionably do? Because you can sit and ponder for the next 10 years. Well, then you look back and nothing has happened. But I think if you keep moving, you know, growth is growth, and you're going to grow anyway.
And that's why I'm like, I mean, there's no rush, like within like this week, I need to have a whatever, but it's like, okay, by the end of this year, I would like to have figured out what my plan of like what I'm working, because I'm someone who's like, I work off of like, they don't have to be like strict timelines, but I need like a general, I know what's going on.
Yeah. Due dates and goals are good.
Yes.
I think working backwards from a goal means you're more likely to at least make progress.
Yes.
What do they say? Shoot the moon and blow up a star and you'll be up there or whatever.
I do.
It's like one
that.
of those.
That's
it's something
fun.
like
I haven't
that.
heard that, but I like that.
It's something
sure.
Like, yeah. And I think that, you know, just doing something is something, but yeah, setting those goals.
Also, like,
but saying you want to perform at the Comedy Cellar, that's a clear, tangible goal.
It's and I just also.
But you do have to be in New York.
I want to be like, I just want to have an act that is worth seeing. Like, for example, when people, even if they're not like well known, like to like, you know, if you're not like paying attention to who's doing comedy, like. The comics that come through here where I'm like texting like Ben Weber and I'm like, dude, so-and-so's coming. Like, we got to go watch them because like they have an act that's so like compelling. Like that you're just like, it is like, you really got to go see. And I would love to find that. I want to be that.
In yourself?
Yeah. I want that. I want to be able to like get on stage and like have a performance, have an act that is like, I know how I feel after like watching something that like really was like, I'm trying to think of the last person that made me feel this way so I can like really whatever, but like I don't know, there's just some shows where I'm like, oh man, I haven't laughed like that and I felt so good and I want to be able to give that feeling. And I feel like my comedy right now is like, to me my comedy is passable, but it's not like, I feel so, yeah.
You ever, what was that show we did with David Kousgaard across the river?
Mile Away?
Mile Away.
Mile Away, yeah.
Mile Away.
Mile Away.
That night, a woman came up to you afterwards, and she was gushing about your comedy. She loved it. She was so excited. She bought you a drink, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Or offered to at least.
Diva.
And she also said to you, she said, you know, I feel like I might be kind of gay or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Right?
she was. Yes, yeah, I remember that.
She had a great time. She laughed so hard.
Yeah.
She was really touched. She connected to you, and you helped bring out a side of her that I think it sounded like she had been burying.
Dang. Yeah. I don't know.
You're doing that.
I know.
So what do you really want?
I don't know. Well, okay. I don't think. I don't know. I wish everyone felt that way.
All right.
I think that, like, you know, I want. Yes, like I'm hitting. Like I remember that girl. I think she still follows me on Instagram, but like, I'm like shouts out, But yeah, she's someone that I'm like, feels like a reflection of same age, going through the same like, and so yes. But I would love. I don't know. I guess I don't know.
No, I think that I'm not saying it because I think that it's like I'm not trying to be antithetical to your goals. I'm just saying I do think you are doing that, and I think you will continue to do that for people. If that's what you really want, is to connect with people or make an impact on people, or have people leave a show and say, "Wow, that was so great," or "I feel different," or "I feel changed," or "I'll never forget this night." You're doing that now. You can do it more. You can do it bigger. You probably could connect with more people and a bigger audience, but you know, in 2025, is it necessary for you to also sacrifice your time, your wallet, your mental space to be able to do that for maybe the same amount of people?
Okay.
I'm not, you know, it's just a question that's on the table.
My writing, bringing this about writing.
Yeah.
My writing feels like sloppy and it's really loose, and I understand that I'm someone who like maybe tells a story or like I do have like a bit of a longer joke, but I'm like there's jokes along the way, and I just want to refine my style. Like
Do you think you have to be somewhere else to do that, or could you just sit down with your pen?
I need to see people. I feel like I really need to be surrounded by like people that are better than me, people who have what I want.
Yeah.
I need to like have that to like, okay, this is like a very small scale example, but when I first started stand up, it was maybe like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. I had a set that I did at Dubliner, and I bombed so hard, and everyone got up around me, had really good sets. And I remember feeling so motivated by that bomb. I went home and I wrote a brand new 5 minutes, and I like manically, I was like, every line is gonna have meaning. Like I remember going home and feeling that. And then I went to Backline on that Wednesday, and I had like a set that like made people that I thought were good like want to talk to me after. And like they were like, that was really good. That was like, I remember feeling so good.
Yeah.
But it was like directly because I failed.
I do think that steel sharpens steel mentality is very true. Like if you're around other people who are pushing you to be better, like you're not going to get that show if you don't work harder.
Yep.
I do think that's the benefit of being in New York.
Yeah.
I think that like, you know, I always feel like if I meet somebody that's 2 years into comedy from Omaha versus somebody that's 2 years into comedy from New York, the comedian from New York is 5 years into comedy comparatively. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they advance faster because they're working harder, they're working around better people, and they're doing that. I don't think it's impossible to get better from here. I don't think it's impossible to learn and to challenge yourself and to push yourself. It's just whatever motivates you. And if you're motivated by being around people who are going to push you, then maybe that is the answer.
That is just, try it. It's something that I'm learning about myself, like in general. Because the thing is again, this is like an idea that wouldn't happen. It would still be like, I'm still here for like 2 more years. Like, I still think I have like 2 years here, 2 years with Hurdat. Like, and I also look at New York as something that like I would want to bring Hurdat with me. Yeah. And like, there are so many people in New York who need a producer. Yeah. And Hurdat is something that like, I want to like continue to grow my roots here and then like grow it other places, bigger cities, stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I
That's just
have a whole...
You want to expand. You want to grow.
I have a whole vision for that.
And I think, if you're going all the way to the top, please bring our podcast with you. Because, I do... We put a lot of work into this thing.
I'm so sorry. You are...
And you know what else I would say? I do think, again, it's good to like talk about this stuff. And I think
this has been very cathartic.
I think it's good for comics to hear this conversation. I tell you, I have poured through podcasts over the course of my time doing comedy, looking for this exact conversation, looking for the answer that will motivate me to be better. And I think the answer really does lie in the work. It lies in the writing. It relies in the getting up. It lies in the practice. It lies in the time.
Yeah.
And I think that if you make little changes or little efforts every single day, you will get better. You will grow. And like all the things we've talked about so far, there's a limit. You might outgrow your show. You might need to go to a bigger show. Maybe the shock to the system is too much.
Yeah.
You just have to ask yourself, what can I do that will consistently help me challenge and grow and better? But I do think that ultimately, one day, New York has to be in your future because you've already opened the door to it. And so I think maybe that starts with a trip to New York. And like maybe a couple mics there,
Yeah. Which the thing is yes. This last Sunday I've been planning because I've got shows in Columbus. And then I'm trying to do Cincinnati's not going to happen. That's another... Oh, God. Never. I'm not even going to get into that. But it's just... I'm paving my way to get there, doing comedy along the way, making it a part of the experience. Yeah. That's what this summer... I'm in the discovery.
You're in the discovery. And you're growing and you're meeting and you're networking people. But we talked about this a year ago, something along the lines of... go to some other scenes.
Yeah.
And meet some new people and try some new stuff.
Yes.
You're going to keep doing that.
Yes.
You'll continue to do that. You just have to add New York to that list.
Yep.
You'll go and you'll find out and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Everybody falls in love with a city when they're there for a day.
Yeah.
But visit it a few more times, give it some shots, try it out, see what works for you. I think you'll figure it out. And to all the comics listening, you too will figure it out.
You too. I just want everyone to figure it out and live their truth.
I think genuinely that it is an unavoidable fact of life that people will live their truth.
Okay, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the day is going to end.
Oof.
And when it does, I think we look back on it and we say, my truth was what I did and what I accomplished. And you're on that journey. And so these check-ins, these conversations, they're very helpful. They help us work it out. But I think maybe the practical goal is one day you're going to do Comedy Cellar. And right now you're going to keep reaping the benefits of the seeds you've already planted. Mm-hmm. And you're going to try some new stuff. You're going to go to some new places. You're going to do some new things. Mm-hmm. And you're going to keep killing it.
Okay. I hope. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
I literally was going through my brain. I was like, God.
I'm kidding.
I'm the worst. I feel so bad. Well,
no,
Cameron, you're doing the damn thing. You are, yeah.
But I like this conversation, and I could talk about this stuff with comics for forever because I think we all pour over this stuff.
Right. This was very helpful, and like I was glad because I think I texted you and was just like, can we have this conversation? Mm-hmm. Not podcast. And then you were like, let's do it on the podcast. And I was like, okay.
I do always tend to spin things and be like, hey, come on and let's do it, because we need the content. I'm running out of guests and this is, I'm just kidding.
It's really funny.
But the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I've milked it at this point, but you get what I'm saying.
I do. Cause I was going to have this conversation with you regardless.
Yeah. And I think it's a good conversation to have because I think like people are thinking about it. And and honestly, comics are so stuck in their head. And you're going to put it on your story and people are going to send a bunch of jokes.
Yeah.
But guess what? They're all thinking the same shit. Like they're all stuck in their head pouring over the same thing. Everybody's in their head thinking about the same shit. And it's true for comedy. It's true for music. Mm-hmm. It's true for painting. It's true for teachers. It's true for engineers. Everybody's thinking the same thing. Should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? But I think that once you've planted the seed, it means that, eventually you should. But you have to do it when it makes sense, when it's time.
Yes.
And if you can, do it in steps.
Yeah.
big changes
Yes.
rarely last.
100%.
But the small steps you take to get anywhere
Yeah.
usually get you where you're going to go.
Wow. Good stuff, Cam.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug?
Just follow Just Jossin Around on Instagram, all the socials. Make sure you review us on Spotify. And you know, for me personally, I'll be around, you know. Chances are I'm not going anywhere. So, you know, I'm gonna be right here hanging out.
Well, you make shit come to you.
Yeah.
You've got the power, though. You have, like, truly, yeah. It's like you are at this point where you do have you have the success to make shit come to you. And anything that is like,
that's very nice.
I really like, I mean, and if the opportunities are there and being presented to you, and then you just go to them and you come back. You have, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm no Cameron Logsdon.
No, I think all I did was make the most of the situation.
You mean you made the most
available to me?
The
you know
most.
I think that's just what we all got to do.
Yeah.
We got to make the best of our circumstances if it's what we really want.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
You ate that up. You did that.
It's very nice.
You did. I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you for coming on Just Jossin Around. Do you want to close us out?
Do we have like a jingle or a final question? Can't remember how the show works.
You brought us in, so I thought you should take us out.
Once again, Joslyne, where can we find you? Where can we find you on socials?
Okay, please. I am almost to 1,000 followers. Please follow me at Joslyne DeBonis. And I don't care about followers. I'm gonna stop looking after 1K. But I just need 1K so that bookers, when I reach out to them, they actually think I'm a person.
And not a bot? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I just am sitting at a weird number, and I feel like I just need 1K, and then I don't care about followers anymore.
Help Joslyne get to 1,000. If you're listening to this pod and you're not following her, what? What is that about? Stop leaving 4.3 star reviews.
Please
okay?
be nice.
5-star reviews.
A genuine soul.
Follow Joslyne on everything.
Yes.
Make sure you check her out in Columbus. Definitely not Cincinnati. She's gonna be. She's gonna be in. Where'd you say? Philly? No. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. The Comedy Cellar. Sooner than later. And she'll be at the Sydney on Tuesdays once a month. Okay. This has been Just Jossin Around. I'm Cameron Logsdon. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Pat and Grace, we love you.
Pat and Grace. We do love them. That was so much fun.